Okay, so our machine looks a little different now. We're over here at the L460. And this is the machine. When I came on board, I worked at a Bernina dealer for about 7 years. And then I started working at Bernina Corporate with the launch of this series of overlockers. And so I've got a lot of knowledge on it and have worked pretty intimately with this one. And then, of course, the development, if you've seen our new air threading sergers, that's been a big project of mine too. But I love using the serger for quilting also. And I think sometimes quilters are like, well, this is for garment sewing. I don't know how I would use it or why I would need it. But just even the simple fact of finishing an edge of a fabric. I'm going to sew through 2 layers here just because I've got a 4-thread overlock in. But if you were going to pre-wash your fabric, so do we have any pre-wash people who pre-wash their fabric before starting their quilts? If you finish your edges, I'll wait till I'm done here. If you finish your edges with an overlock, it's trimming and it's neatening this edge as it goes. You can then put your woven fabrics that fray into the washing machine, wash them and dry them, and they don't come out in like a big wad of tangled, frayed edge of the fabric. So that's first and foremost just one of the ways that you can start with using an overlock. And then, of course, you could do some of your basic piecing. So I've just got kind of this little sampler panel that I've cut up here. But you can set this machine. So you've got cutting width, which is sort of like stitch width on an overlocker. And you've got 2 needles that you can use that hold the loops at the edge. So it's an extra strong seam, or you could just do 1 needle. So it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to seam with 4 threads or if you'd rather seam with 3 threads. But you can do some really nice piecing, I think, and get a pretty good 1/4 inch seam. So I know that like probably a 1/4 inch is between 5 and 6, really. And so you could do your basic piecing, especially on something that is using rectangular type shapes together pretty easily. And the nice thing is like you can get scrappy with it. You can be very improvisational with a serger because it's trimming the edge as you go. So your basic quilt piecing. Then the nice thing about something like this is that now the back side of your quilt top would be just as tidy as the top. You're not going to have that frayed edge either. So this is really kind of like if you're looking for a speed project, you can use your overlocker for seaming. I don't know if there's any comments or if anybody uses their overlocker that way, but I really think it's a lot of fun. Another thing that you can do is a kind of this method that's called quilt as you go. I'm going to see if I might need to grab some scissors.
So Jami, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's so cute because Bonnie in the comments said, yeah, it's a drool item.
It is a drool item, but it's really like right now you can get this as one of you could choose this as the item to go with your 790.
Okay, so we did get a question from Gert. If there are curved sections in a quilt block, can they be stitched on an overlocker? That's a very good question.
That is a good question. And it's like, I mean, for your precision things and your curved things, this is really not the ideal tool. It really is going to be better to do basically your rectangular shapes and things. It's a little hard. It's a little harder to be precise. Like you can be precise, I think you could do some curved piecing, but the thing is, because it's cutting and sewing at the same time, like you get one shot to get that right, because if you make a mistake, you're sort of at the mercy of the machine also, if that makes sense. I don't want to make it sound super intimidating, but that's it is limited what you should piece on a serger. Okay, so.
All right, so I got my batteries replaced in my microphone, Jami. So I think I'm good to go.
I'm glad it was your microphone and not mine, because I'm using a new microphone, and so I've been paranoid about that all day, because I'm just like, I don't know how long this lasts. I've not used this one before.
Hey, we have a question from Heather again, and this is a good question just for sergers in general, not just for quilting. But if you make a mistake on a serger, it's pretty easy to undo the stitches. I'm not a fan of the seam ripper on a sewing stitch, but I definitely enjoy pulling out a serger stitch. It's a lot easier.
It is a little easier because you can get those loopers, and then once you've gotten those out of there, it's much easier to then pull the needle threads out. So it is like everything. You learn the technique, and then you're golden. One thing that I think is kind of fun is this quilt as you go method. So this could use a lot of your scrap batting. That, like when you make a quilt and then you've quilted it, you always end up with these like long 6-inch like border pieces that come off the edges. And if you save those in some of your scrap fabrics, you can do this sort of stitch, flip, continue to build kind of style of using those batting scraps, those thin batting scraps. So I've just taken one here, and I'm going to kind of just put this together. So it's like a little quilt sandwich. And then the way you would build this is you would take right sides down for the next piece that you wanted to add with the batting. And then you need to put whatever is going to be the backing for that one on the back. So you've got right sides together here. So I'm sewing, look at all those layers that I'm sewing. And this is the thing that's like kind of awesome about a serger. This one also has presser foot pressure, but it's just gonna trim all that up and take all those layers like no big deal.
I love this serger. I love the knee lifter. I love the micro thread control. I love the quality of the stitch. I love how it turns easily. I love the sound of it. And doesn't it have an extension table as well?
Yeah, this one I've got the extension table on. So this comes off, you release back here. And this 460, I like all the features that you just listed, Barbara, is really good. It's like, so it has a DC motor, and that's why I think it sounds so quiet. It also feels a lot more like your sewing machine. So it's not just like you press on the foot control and you're going 100 miles an hour. You can actually have a little bit of that stitch by stitch control with this machine because of that DC motor. It also has I think I can probably show you. It has the same foot control as our sewing machine. So actually, like if I rock back on the heel of the foot control, you can see the needles on the serger will take a half step from wherever I'm at. So that's, if you're a Bernina user, to me, that's kind of a big deal. And it's kind of a game changer to have that on an overlocker. The other thing is we've got the freehand system. So if you see I'm rocking over, I'm actually using my hand because I'm sitting at kind of an awkward spot, but I'm using the freehand system to raise and lower the presser foot. So then for my next seam, I can just go right up here and place it underneath. But back to my like little quilt as you go idea. So it's like, so here's the back of my, now obviously I need more fabric to cover this, but I can continue building in this method, but I've got the batting scraps used up in those little sandwiches, and I can just kind of keep building improvisationally in that method. And you want to press probably as you go, but you can kind of get the idea. I'll do one more little row here so you can just get the idea of this concept because it's pretty fun.
Hey, I think we have some more sewing nerds in the comments like us, Jami.
Okay,
Josie sews, says that the DC is great because it keeps the same power no matter how thick the fabric you have.
Yes, it's that really strong piercing power that you get. It doesn't,
I like that.
It doesn't bog down.
Yes. And I know that the step-ups from this, the new L8 series, the air threading sergers, have the free arm. I can't remember if this one does or not. We had a question about that.
This one does not have a free arm.
Josie says, yes, nerd. Thanks. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
All right, so you could see how you could just keep kind of building a quilt structure, you know, using up some of your scrap batting in that method. And I've made, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, sometimes you have to kind of plan it out so that you can always be adding to like a central piece. But I've made some really basic baby quilts that way. And like, it's good. I made a machine cover. One of the trainings that I did for the Bernina dealers was an actual machine cover for this machine. And we did the kind of stitch and flip quilt as you go method to make the front panel. It had a little Swiss cross. And then we did the back just with stripes. And so it was a really easy way to see how that concept worked. But was there a question or was that just an echo?
No, we don't have any questions.
Okay.
I think we're good on that.
Yeah,
I love this.
So I was going to say too that it's like, I talked about edge finishing for pre-washing, but if you make a quilt top and just you do all your piecing and all of that, and say you send it to a long armor, you know, you can just finish the edges of that quilt top before you give it to your long armor, and it preserves that fabric edge a little longer. So that's the same thing. Just do a 3-thread overlock, just encase that edge with a nice stitch. But I also like to do it, like if I'm going to do binding by machine or by hand, I like to be able to use the overlocker to just square up my piece. So I'm going to take my little trivet block here, and I haven't trimmed anything, but I'm just going to use the knife. And the presser foot actually has marks on it, so you can see where the needles would go. So if I really needed to straighten something, I could draw a line, and then I could follow the marks of the needles that I'm using here.
Everyone says that they love Quilt As You Go in the comments.
They love the what?
Quilt As You Go.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you could get that concept. I actually realized that I used the fabrics that I wanted to use for that, the first thing I was showing. And so I made a little mistake. But it is a really great way to use scraps, especially that scrap batting.
I love how quiet this machine is. So this is one of the options. If you purchase the B790E Plus from AllBrands for the month of May, you get to choose between a sewing machine or this serger or the full digitizing software. So you get to build your own dream studio.
Yep. And I mean, you can see just, I mean, maybe you can see, hopefully you can see, I use really light colored thread. I probably should have put dark in there, but you can see how nice and tidy that edge is. And actually like at this cutting width, it's almost perfect. Like if I stitched my binding on my machine, then when I go to hand stitch it to the back, I can actually see the rows of serging there that I can kind of match up, and I get really nice looking binding that way. You know, and it's clean and tidy, and it's a fun machine to use. So I want to show a video that shows using it to actually put the binding on. So we'll play that video, and then I'll show you that in real life.
Great.
So I think I got out of order, but that was something I forgot to show you is flat locking. And so flat locking is a special stitch that you can do. And I'm taking out a needle right now so I can show you the flat lock. But a flat lock stitch is basically, so an overlock stitch is a balanced stitch. It's where the loopers are balanced with each other at the edge and the needles are holding everything into place. And then a flat lock is when things are kind of out of balance and you pull them apart. One fabric can lay on top of the other fabric. And so I'm going to just set the machine up for that. And a good time to kind of show that like all the tools are right here that I need. So I just took the needle out. There's a holder tool, a little screwdriver to help loosen it. There's storage for needles in the machine. There's a lot of great features on this. The threading chart is right here too. It's super easy to thread. It's very open. So no need to be intimidated by that. But I'm just using a right needle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically loosen my needle tension, which is this one. And then I'm going to tighten up my lower looper tension. And my upper looper is still in here. You can do 2-thread flat locks as well. But that blanket that we just showed was constructed because it's reversible. So there's two sides to this stitch. I've got a pillow sitting back here too. So there's a part of the stitch that looks like a ladder, and then there's a part that looks like loops. And so if I put these right sides together, the loop will appear on the back side, and then when I pull these apart, you'll see the ladder side on the top. So let's see. And that micro thread control that Barbara was talking about moves the stitch finger, and that's what holds the loops to the edge. So I'm just moving that out a little bit so I have more space to pull these apart.
I love the micro thread control feature. It moves the stitch finger independently of the knife, which helps you to perfect how the loopers go around the fabric. And it's just such a nice feature.
I don't know if you can see when I pull that apart, you'll start to see those ladder stitches. And so this is just a really kind of fun way to make patchwork on an overlocker, because now one fabric is laying on top of the other. If you have nice fabrics like those flannels that Haley used in that blanket that we just showed, you can do that. And then I use this technique also to make a t-shirt quilt. I love the overlocker for sewing knits because it has a feature called Differential Feed, which is over here on the right-hand side. There's 2 sets of feed dogs on this machine. So it's basically when you're changing differential feed, you're changing the rate at which those feed dogs move to one another. So you can work with stretchy fabrics like knit really easily. So you don't have to interface and do all that stuff. You can just kind of take your knit, piece them together. And I did this t-shirt blanket out of baseball t-shirts and used this flat lock stitch. So let's take a look at that video.
Bernina, made to create.
Wow, that is so fantastic. Oh my goodness. And I never thought to do the t-shirt quilts on a serger.
Yeah, and that particular project, the way that you can find the directions for that on the We Also blog, and it's really like, if there's purist quilters out there, there is not batting. No, there is not batting in that. I just put fleece on the back of the t-shirt. So technically, I guess we could call it a blanket, but to me, it was just a simple way of using t-shirts. And then I put the fleece, and then at the very end of that video, what I was doing was setting the machine up for what is called a 2-thread wrapped stitch. And so instead of putting binding on it at all, I just used a really fluffy texturized thread to just finish the edges of those t-shirts on top of the fleece together. And then I added the buttons so that it basically was attached at various points in the middle so that it wasn't like a, you know, an empty pillow. But it's like, it was just a fast way of making a quick t-shirt throw blanket. And I actually really like that. I still have that project and it's like, it's very soft and very cozy and it's perfect for outside. And yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jami, we actually have some pictures that you sent in that we can put on the screen if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. So this is, oh my goodness, that turned out wonderful.
Yeah. So you can see I used the backs of the quilts in there too. It's just kind of you have to make a little bit of a plan on how you're going to put it together because you're sewing straight rows. And so I kind of had planned it out in sections and then sewed it together. But yeah, it's a fun, different way of doing a quilt project. But let's go ahead and take a look at that binding video that I referenced earlier, and then I'll show you how to do binding on the overlocker.
This is the game changer, guys. I love binding on the serger. You're really going to enjoy this.
Bernina, made to create.
I wish the machine played that music when it bound stitches.
It's very jazzy. I
Yes.
mean, we just need our very own jazz club as we do binding always. But yeah, no, I think there's not a ton of difference in concept in terms of how you would do this on a sewing machine. It's like I always start with a tail. And it's like, and then you do have to kind of know where your needles are. Now I've gone down just to my right needle. I have put my tensions back for a normal stitch here, and I've made my width wide because I only have that right needle. I'm hoping that it's going to cover my edge here, which it should. Maybe if I go a little bit wider. But I want to start with a tail behind so that when I come back around, I've got something to tuck it into. And then, you know, it's like, I'm not going to join like I would maybe if I was doing a real precious quilt, you know, where I'd come back and maybe sew the seam together. But I'm just going to do a real easy tuck and then serge over. And then you would roll it to the back and hand stitch it down or stitch it by machine. So there is another part to the process. Now, if you know, there are some fusible threads. So here's kind of a hot tip, is that because the looper puts so much thread on here as it sews, you could actually put that fusible thread in your loopers. And then as you heat it, it will melt into glue. So
Mind blown.
Yes.
What a great suggestion.
Yes, I will tell you that is a fast way of binding something if you need like a sample for a class or whatever. But it's like most of those glue, like those threads do become a glue. So once you've melted it into glue, then you've lost some of the structure of your stitch. So you need to, if you're going to keep it permanently, you need to then go back and stitch it, you know, with your sewing machine. But it is a fast way of like binding something in a pinch. And it will last a while before it just like, you know, totally melts away. But anyway, so I'm going to start with about a 6-inch tail back here. And I'm going to just kind of butt up my binding edge to my cutting knife, which is right here. and that I'm going to start sewing down until I come to, now this is already serged, so I have a visual line here, but on this machine, I know kind of where it is, so I can visualize that 1/4 of an inch. But I like to stop about a 1/4 of an inch from the end. And then, because this machine you can sew off of fabric, I'm just going to make a loop. So you'll see what I do when I come to this corner. Okay, so now right here, I'm about a 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So I can just veer off and keep chaining. I got a little bit of my thread trimmings there. And then you're going to do your 45 miters. So it's like I'm going to fold this 45 degrees back, or I guess that's actually a 90-degree, right? But it's going to make my 45-degree miter just like I would on the sewing machine. And it's still, the thread is still attached. And then I'm just going to turn this and place that right up, same spot, right up against that knife, and keep going. And if you missed this for some reason, it's not the end of the world if you miss that 1/4 of an inch, but it just makes that miter a little bit more precise.
And super secure as well.
It's so nice to then hand stitch also because everything's finished.
Patricia says, I need to try binding with my serger. You make it look so easy. I think the machine helps.
Yeah. I've had a little practice, and it's like, it's not too hard. I promise if you've done it on a sewing machine, see here, I overshot my corner a little bit. So like I can kind of pull out those threads and then get it right back where I want it. But yeah, it's if you've done it on a sewing machine, it's the concept's not really any different. It's just getting acquainted with your serger and being comfortable with it trimming while you're doing it.
Carolyn says you do make it look very easy.
Well, and that stitch by stitch, so I can slow down there at the end, is really nice.
It's very clean.
All right, so I need to, I'll use the machine to help me hold the fabric, and then I can kind of gauge, like, this is my like quick method. I'll just cut that thread tail and then tuck it into that opening. And this is where you kind of have to pull it taut so that you don't get a little pucker. And then just right off. So now all I need to do is just give it a press and press it to the back and stitch it down by my favorite method.
And it's consistently cut all the way around.
Yes. I mean, you have to watch your line. If you're veering, Barbara, if you're like kind of crooked sewing, you're going to know. So yeah, that's the risk that you take. So I think small projects, pretty easy to do this. Like, I don't know that I would come over to this with a king size quilt, but I would definitely do a baby quilt. I actually have done baby quilts, I know. And then like even a full size quilt or queen size quilt, maybe I would do that. But yeah, it's just, you got to just be confident in how you move the fabric here. But the markings are all on the foot too. So if you draw yourself a line, that's one way to make it easy. So
Josie Sews in the comments said, see, this is why I love AllBrands tutorials. But Josie, I cannot take credit for this. I am so inspired by Jami and the team at Bernina that write the We Also blog tutorials. They are such an inspiration every day, and they have so much content to go on. And that's why I asked Jami very nicely to come on the show, because we love you very much.
Well, that is very nice. And I hope that you guys are inspired to give the Serger a try. It's really, like I said, I mean, I know I'm biased because it's been my baby, but it does make quick work of things, and it gives you a few more advantages. So